It's a new year. Do you find yourself saying, this is the year we're going to finally work on us? Maybe you didn't say it out loud. Maybe you thought it quietly when the clock struck midnight on New Year's Eve, or perhaps on New Year's Day when you were thinking about what the new year was to bring. A new year, a fresh start, and this time things are going to change. And yet, if you're honest, nothing actually feels different yet. The same tension, the same conversations that spiral, that familiar moment where you realize another hard talk is coming right around the block and you already feel braced for impact. If you're wondering, why does this still feel so hard if we love each other? I want you to hear this clearly. It's not because you didn't try hard enough. It's not because no one said, hey, this is a problem. It's because no one ever taught you the skills that relationships actually require. I'm Stacey Bartley, and this is Love Shack Live, the podcast for people standing at a relationship crossroads. People who care deeply, who are exhausted by conflict or emotional distance, and who want something steadier than survival. I'm here with my partner and co-host Tom and our daughter Brooke, and together we teach real-life relationship skills, the kind that help love feel safe, workable, and lasting again. And here's the truth most of us were never told. Relationship resolutions don't fail from a lack of love or effort. They fail because you can't practice what you were never taught. You can't communicate better without knowing how to stay present when emotions begin to run high. You can't promise to fight less if you don't know how to repair after things go sideways. So today, we're answering this question. Why do resolutions to work on our relationship fail? And what skills actually change things when it matters most? If you've ever thought there has to be another/better way, stay with us. This episode is for you. You're exactly where you need to be.
Hey, thank you for coming. Welcome to the Love Shack.
So the most common relationship resolutions sound like this. I bet you're saying them. We'll communicate better. We're not going to say those hurtful, mean things. We're going to try and not jump to conclusions. I'm going to say things like, I'm going to finally try and do all the things that you've asked me to do, in spite of how frustrated I get with it. I'm just going to grind through it. I'm going to say, we won't allow ourselves to fight anymore. We're going to do something different. We're just going to talk it out, or we're going to spend more quality time together. That's it. That's the key. That's what's going to make this better. We'll be more patient with each other. That's what we're going to do. We're just going to be more patient. Let's go on with our lives and stop bringing up the past. That's it. Let's just leave the past where it is, not bringing it up, not talk about it, and let us start afresh again. These are exceptionally common things that we say. And logically, they seem so doable. Logically, it's like, yes, of course, that's it. We've hit the mother lode. If you and I can just do this list of things, then we're going to be able to be in a better place. And it makes so much logical sense. But here's the thing that we often forget about in the conversation. These pursuits are not going to go well. Because if I were to go back through this same list and give you some examples of what happens when we say we're going to communicate better, what's interesting is, number one, we don't know how to say what it is we don't know how to say. Like learning how to translate your thoughts and feelings into a language you can understand is a skill that some of us have and some of us don't. Some of us have honed over time. Without that ability, I sit down at the table to communicate better. And what ends up happening is we dive right into the 500-pounders. Like we're going to go for the big one without realizing, okay, practice. We probably need to start with something easy and just get the practice of the exchange of information and regulating ourselves as we do it. So we need to start with maybe 10-pounders, right? Maybe just the exchange of how was your day? What are you needing? How are you feeling about what we have for dinner? Like start with small things. And that exchange of information is a practice.
Yeah, I would say if you're stepping into maybe a physical practice, which many people do for New Year's, which is awesome. If you're going to, say, an outside gym or place that people help you with that, they don't start you out with the significant challenge you've never, ever even attempted. So if we just kind of use that analogy, oh yeah, of course, I got to start out small. I got to use a weight that I can first master the movement and how it's going to work muscles that haven't been worked probably in a long time, and then graduate incrementally. Same would apply emotionally.
We have emotional muscles that we don't really pay much attention to. And we think that we're just going to sit down and dive into the big kahuna, the one that's really been keeping me up at night, and expect it to go well. And it never does. I don't use never and always very often, but it's just amazing the 100% precision with the best of intentions. We sit down to try and do it. And then there we are again.
I've been making a lot of content about New Year's on our social media channels this week. And one of the messages that I wanted to get across to our audiences has to do with this episode. I feel like a lot of times we fail at resolutions because we try the same things we've always tried. So we have the goal, but we don't acquire any new skills to achieve the goal, and we fail because we tried it in all of the ways that didn't work in the past. And I feel like we don't usually apply that logic to relationships. One of the things I posted was, if talking about it worked, things would be fixed right now. You know?
We wouldn't have a body of work if talk. I mean, to be fair, I mean, I'm trying to be a smart aleck, but
But like, if you just say, we'll talk about this, which is what couples always do. We'll just talk about this more. We need to talk about this more. We got to communicate better. All of those things, we've said this many times on this show, those require like micro skills before talking about it will ever be successful. But for some reason, we kind of beat the dead horse in our relationships, and we don't ever think like maybe the things I'm doing are wrong. We think we need to do more of the thing that isn't working.
Yeah. And that definitely is followed behind by, okay, I'm going to just do all the things that you've asked me to do in spite of how resistant I am about it. Like, I'm just going to grind through it, and that's going to be it. I'm just going to communicate better. We're just going to talk more, and that's going to take us to the promised land. That one seems like it would work, because I'm in control and I'm in charge of just doing the thing. But what we don't account for is that if I have a tremendous amount of resistance to it, and every time I do it, I feel like it's unfair or ridiculous. If I start feeling like I do all of this and you don't do anything, like I'm not going to make it to the end of the year, because I'm going to become more and more resentful, more and more angry. And it's only going to be a matter of time. Yeah, I might be doing the thing, but if you're a human being, you're going to lose your shit. Like, there is no win there. As it accumulates and compounds over time, the frustration and the sense of unfairness and obligation, et cetera, continues to build as you do it. And the more you do it, the more sensitive and raw it becomes. And eventually, yeah, you might be doing all the things, but the way you're behaving is going to become exceptionally passive aggressive. And that's going to throw off a whole other subset of issues between the two of you as well.
Well, I also think that you could have two partners who have all of the hope and good thoughts in the world that this year is going to be different, but still every time they come together and they do talk about it, it ends up in a ridiculous fight every single time, you know? And so because of that, you think, well, maybe we just aren't talking enough. We need to do it even more than we are doing it. And that's the reason why it's happening. But then you would just be having more fights, because I just think it's so interesting that we don't like trust our own wisdom to know that something is off here, and we'll go against everything that our body is telling us.
Well, and when the fights begin to become more and more and more, right, of a common experience in our relationship, we might have the logical thought of, we just won't allow ourselves to fight at all. Like,
yeah,
I'm just going to keep my mouth shut.
Talking.
We're just going to avoid each other. We're just going to avoid conversations that are really meaningful or emotional. And we're just going to take care of all the logistics and circumstances, take out the trash, pay the bills. We'll just not go there. That's it. Right. And logically, again, that makes a whole lot of sense, without realizing if we don't voice our differences, we'll never be able to solve the slow burn that's underneath the surface. We won't be successful with that. And oh, by the way, again, you're going to do a setup, because there's this little teeny tiny thing, called emotional constipation. You're not going to win that one. Like, you're going to set yourself up to lose your shit. It's a great logical idea, but we as a human being do not function that way. It tells me that you don't understand the system that we operate under, and most of us don't. It's no fault of yours. But when we shut our mouths and don't talk, we just become more and more passive aggressive, which again is going to have that throw off that we're wanting to fix. It's not going to take us anywhere good. In fact, it can actually greatly impact the relationship more in my refusal to dialogue and talk with you. Now I'm avoiding you and I'm dismissing you and I don't want to hear what you have to say, or I get up and I remove myself. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, that's just the opposite side of the problem you're engaging in. Right? Yes, I love the idea of getting together and creating new memories and new moments and novel adventures that we've never embarked on before, or revisiting the things that we know fill us up and always have as a couple. That is a beautiful thing. But eventually, that's not going to also be able to take you where it is you need to go. There's going to be challenges that are inevitable in every relationship. And if we don't have the skills to navigate through the inevitable ups and downs, we're going to find ourselves back at square zero or one, because we don't know how to have those kinds of conversations to resolve the parts for us as a human being that don't work. It's commonly in the parts that are not working for us that we have a heck of a time understanding how to talk about and how to solve. And if we can't talk about them, and if we don't understand how to solve them, and if there's no space for us to even lay the card on the table, well, then you can start to see there's no way we're going to be able to go in a different direction and create a brand new experience out of this relationship. So although I am really good and on board with let's spend more quality time together, that quality time will turn into a nemesis where it'll only take a time or two where we're fighting because of the things that are unspoken and unsaid. And that quality time isn't going to feel like quality time anymore.
Well, I think what we're all describing is it's the classic situation where we think changing the external, like, yeah, let's go to one of our favorite places that we haven't been to in a long time. That's all well and good. And environment matters. But if we're not able to handle the underlying issues, it doesn't really matter where we're at. It's a good thought. And it may be temporary. You might get a little bit of a hit, like, oh yeah, this was great. I see why we like it. But pretty soon, what needs to be addressed will raise its head. It's just how it works. So rather than looking to change the external, at some point we'd be able to turn and face truly what's going on.
Well, and Mom, too, you said at some point you're going to have to talk about your differences. That, like, let me just ask you, in all of your sessions with couples, is it really successful when two people who don't have the skills necessary, when they talk about their differences, do those conversations typically go well?
No, in fact, you know what? That's a good point that you bring up, Brooke, because uncommon to couples therapy, which we are also compared to, for good reason, I understand. It's the industry that we're in. I don't allow you to talk about your problems until we skill up. I won't even allow us to go there because I know how it's going to play out. Not only can we not talk about our differences without somebody exploding in the room or walking out, or quite frankly, never coming back, or grinding out 5 sessions because they've been threatened to do so. They're not really getting anything out of it. I am not a fan of coming in and hashing out our problems. The very first things we do in our sessions is we skill up, and then we'll start talking about the problems.
Exactly.
We'll start talking about the ones that we can have some success with. And it won't be until we've skilled up quite a bit before we pull out the 500 pounders, right? The 1,500 pounders. Because of what you just said, Brooke.
Well, and I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, in those initial sessions, for sure, I mean, you're very much carefully and strategically facilitating the unraveling of these. I mean, this is the power of, someone that's objective and impartial, like Stacey. If two people don't have the fundamental 2 attributes, you got to have permission for each person to feel how they feel and the emotional safety to share. Most people don't. So oftentimes you have to go to someone that's skilled in holding that space for you so you can, as Brooke said, start to talk about these difficulties that is never going to go well because the skills aren't there, and it's okay. But for heaven's sakes, you're not all of a sudden going to magically, it'd be no different than if you've never driven a car and haven't taken some driver's ed. I mean, you're going to crash.
Mom too said, like, it's very important for couples to talk about their differences. My brain was like, oh God, flashing lights. I don't want someone to listen to that and then go to their partner and be like, honey, we need to talk about our differences. That's not why you said it. And I just wanted to point it out because that is the hardest conversation to have with your partner. With the tools, it can make it safe, just like Dad said, so that the conversation is actually possible without screaming and yelling and becoming defensive and cutting off the conversation and having the biggest fight you've ever had. But my point is just that it takes so many skills built up inside of you before that's even possible. Just like Mom too said, she doesn't allow her clients to do it until they have some practice with the skills that she teaches.
Well, think about it. If we all kind of have a blow up, going back to what Dad said, permission and safety, which are really key. If we're going to make any progress here, we have to experience those two things, because if it doesn't feel like there's space for me to actually share, it's going to be judged and criticized. And all of a sudden I'm going to find myself in a courtroom, then that's going to automatically sacrifice the emotional safety. And if I don't have emotional safety, I'm not going to share shit. I am not going to say anything that is of any value, let alone vulnerable, if those two things are not present. So think about it. A couple comes in. I say, okay, tell me all your problems. Let's just dive in. Those are the ones we want relief from, right? So of course, those are going to be the ones that you throw out on the table. And then everybody starts down the same old path, right? I've seen it 1,000 times, tens of thousands of times. And then we find ourselves in a place where, it only takes somebody to feel unsafe again to where we'll go, this isn't working. I don't feel safe. I don't want to do this anymore. And so my job is to help us see right out of the gate how we need to build safety and permission, and how you can create it for yourself and need to create it for yourself. And if we know how to create it and build it, then we know how to reach back for it when we need it and things are starting to wobble a little bit. I'll literally cut people right off. Nope, we're not going there today. That is not what we're doing. We're going to scale up and we'll talk about this smaller aspect of things so that we can have some success.
Let me cut you off because
safety in it.
a few sentences back, like Brooke said, you mentioned courtroom. I don't want the listener to feel like, oh my God, now we're going to the courtroom. So we just talked about this on Monday night in Better Love Club. So you said we're going to find ourselves in the courtroom. That was a metaphorical reference, correct? So expand on that, please.
Yes, I would be happy to. Good catch, babe. The court, we in our minds really have two places we can live. And the courtroom is a place that seems to be a favorite for all of us as human beings. We love to put ourselves in.
Perry Mason.
Man. We love to put ourselves in the courtroom, judging the heck about ourselves. When we love, let's be honest, listeners, we love to judge our partners and what they do, what they don't do, and why they do it. I mean, we can spend a whole lifetime there. And so that metaphor of the courtroom is just a check-in to go, where am I living? Am I living in the courtroom right now? Am I full of judgment, or am I stepping into the classroom so that I can learn and understand something?
Very significant distinction there.
Huge distinction. It's okay for me to see what's not working, but am I in the courtroom or the classroom of that experience?
Meaning, like, am I looking to render a verdict, or am I looking to learn about the dynamics and the patterns in our relationship? Because if you're only looking to render a verdict, there's no opportunity for behavior change in that situation. You're just taking like a picture of it and adding it to your evidence folder.
I would say then, with great love and respect, you probably are going to go to a literal courtroom at some point in time if that's the only place that you go. I'm just being honest.
Learning in the classroom helps me not only to understand what we have been doing, but it also helps me uncover better ways of moving forward. So being in the classroom is the ultimate, whether I'm trying to understand myself or I'm trying to understand my partner and the creation of us, which is always a creation. I say this all the time. It's never one person. It never will be. It is the mix of you and me that creates the experiences that we have together as a couple. And that's also why it can be so amazing and beautiful, but it's also why it can be a little tricky. I only understand my side of it unless I'm really good at an exchange of information and vetting out all of these incredible judgments, narratives that I find myself spinning in. So, it's a skill. That's why it is a skill. And that's unavoidable. We want to skill up in relationships to do just those things if we were to put them all in big, broad categories. I need to know how to give myself and them permission. I need to know how to create safety. And I need to know how to stay in the classroom and out of the courtroom for us to really make true progress towards any new behavior change, as we call it 2.0 or 3.0. And I just want to say this because we were talking about this earlier today too, I think is very relevant to this episode, is couples come together and they think that because we love each other, we're going to be fine. And I also think that if it was good today, it's going to be good for the rest of our lives. We are going to be fine because it's going to be stagnant. And that is so not true. In a lifetime, we are going to change again and again and again. And as Esther says it so beautifully, Esther Perel, she says, now that I've been married to my husband for 40 years, I can tell you right now, we've done at least 6 or 7 transformations of this relationship and ourselves in the process. So we either do it right together, we transform this relationship into something that now suits us because we've changed as people, or we change partners.
Exactly.
But the transformation is inevitable. The 2.0, 3.0, 4.0. I even think about the 15 years that you and I have been together. I feel like, good on Esther. I think you and I have gone through 10 or 11 transformations in 15 years. Like we're rapid cyclers, right?
There's a lot of moving parts.
I mean, I think back about what we thought was going to be the relationship in the beginning.
It's so cute. So cute.
And where we've evolved from. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I love the version of us, right? And I look forward to continued versions because that tells me that we're growing together as a couple, but we're also growing as human beings. If we don't allow for that natural progression of evolution to happen, contrary to popular belief, we still might be doing all the same old things, but the same old things aren't giving it to me anymore.
Well, it brings me to one of your classic isms. We call these Stacy isms, if you will, is love is not enough to make a relationship work. I don't mean that to be disingenuous or being a dick.
But you didn't finish it, Dad. But skills are.
Skills are. If there's a secret, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And that makes us nervous because we don't like to think about change. We don't like to think about you changing, me changing, us changing. And it's inevitable. So what if we were to look at this from the other side of the equation and embrace it and celebrate it and work together to create those transformations of growth so that we can cheer ourselves on and each other on instead of making this insistent demand that will never prove or bode well. This is the way it's going to be forever and always. Don't change. I always think of a client of mine years ago, a mediation client, where she stands up and literally screams in the session at the top of her voice, "You promised to love me for 25 years. And he was just like, but I'm done. I'm done. And it's hanging on to these things that we think are going to give us a guarantee that often have us kicking the can down the road, waiting too long, and not allowing ourselves or our partners to transform. So even though we're going through all the same steps and options, the relationship itself and the experience that each of us are having in it feels very hollow. There's nothing there. It feels very empty. And it's because we're stuck and stagnated in time and we're not allowing ourselves to evolve and expand and grow in new ways and places and spaces. And I just need you to know that that is truly human evolution and it is inevitable. We can get drug into transformation or we can willingly embrace it and embrace it together.
I also think you said relying on your vows or what your partner promised can make it stagnant. It can also make it so that you rely that they're going to be there so you don't ever change. Like, you have all these things that you could be doing to improve yourself or improve the relationship, but they're going to love you anyway. So you just are like, I'll put it on the back burner. And I think actually a lot of times it's not a conscious choice. We prioritize everything else on top of doing what I just said because we count that our partner is going to be there no matter what.
And that I love each other. We love each other so much. It's going to be okay. And look, we all do it. We all can have a tendency of prioritizing things that we lose sight of the relationship between us. And we can set it aside for a moment, just as we can anything in our lives.
But not forever.
But we forget and fail to come back to it and hold it in the priority place and space that it is.
I'm thinking about, what is it when people say, Stacy, I don't have the time for that. What is your response?
Don't worry about it then. You won't have it to be concerned with soon. It's like we don't get the benefits without the investment.
Exactly.
And that's just true for us all. I mean, there's no hall pass there.
I'll say there's no hall pass in any other part of our life. I bet if you sold that to your employer, I'm good now and I'm never going to, your superior say, well, that's fine. Well, you won't be here. You won't be here long.
I have a lot of other things going on. I'm not going to be able to do my work today.
Don't worry.
Imagine saying that to your boss. I have a lot of overwhelming things happening in my life, so I just can't do my job at the moment.
Yeah.
Well, okay,
it's going to take care of itself pretty quick. So with great love and respect, this is all good news because there is a very predictable course that we are all about. Like, look, we're all about love. We want love for everybody, whatever your version is. But I do think there is a significant disconnect to what it is that you're thinking you want and what's required to have it. I do think that's fair.
Wow. I mean, we don't think that we're going to focus on our relationships, honestly, until
the house is
burning down.
Yeah.
And I think that's because we weren't taught how important it was to focus on it in the first place. This narrative that we've all been raised in our society and culture, and this is commonly around the world, is that if I just find a special someone and we build a life together, we're good. We're really good. I don't have to think about that anymore. I can go back to pursuing my personal goals and my health and financial goals. We can get caught up in taking care of the kids and we're going to be fine. I mean, and then the longer you're together, the more you count on that. Yeah, I know things weren't really great, but my gosh, we've been together 20 years. Of course we're going to stay together. And then there's this major surprise, right? That we call the default option because it's inevitable. We won't stay in places commonly for a lifetime that have a slow downturn to them over time. We have somewhere intuitively in us, in our human wisdom, to know that I'm not going to be okay after a certain point in time, mentally, emotionally, spiritually,
Physically.
cognitively, that one person is at a rapid place of decline and unknown to the person that they're in partnership with. Yes, they keep doing all the things and year over year, I can count on them to do that, but we're not talking about the slow decline emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually until they just choose to not do it anymore.
Yeah, so this is a really good point. Most often people in a marriage, people in a longer term close relationship, you're at very different points of this journey and yet we think we're both the same. And so when some person says, "I need space," well, you got to realize they've been going through this and on their own journey, just nothing has been shared. This is why it seems to be so out of the blue. It's not out of the blue. You're just at different points of the path and no one's talking about what's going on. So that's why it appears to come out of nowhere. We hear this so frequently and it's difficult to hear it. I know, but it's very common. We're never at the same places, especially the longer we're together, the more skill and the more sharing that needs to be required because our lives have changed so much.
Well, I guarantee you there is not a couple on the planet who's genuinely sharing and being heard that is surprised by the outcome of their relationship. So all I would say and suggest is that if you're surprised, go back and think about how much time you have been vulnerable and felt heard and how much time you have devoted to that experience for your partner. And I bet you're going to see why you're surprised. Because if there's genuine exchange of information happening on a consistent basis, you won't be surprised. It'll be shared with you, right? You'll be fully aware of what's going on. But that's not how it plays out. That is not how it plays out at all.
And there's a variety of reasons why that is the case.
Yes.
Like infinite reasons. Like for me, it was because I was too anxious. So then my partner felt like they couldn't share their true feelings with me because I would literally fall on the floor and cry the second I felt our relationship was on the rocks. So of course, they would just hold it all in so that they didn't give me that experience. Well, if then they said, "I want to break up," I would be shocked by that. But it wasn't because that wasn't happening inside of them. It was because I wasn't allowing the conversation to be put on the table. So I just wanted to point out that because I feel like in the way Mom 2 said it, it implies that there was like nefarious activity, but no, that it's these behaviors that we all have, coping mechanisms and behaviors that come from the way that we cope with things are what are the roadblocks for being vulnerable. It's not that you were like, no, we can never talk about this. I feel like that's what some people would imply, but that wasn't the case at all.
And so you go back to our beautiful resolutions, right? They're the pursuit of outcomes, the likes of which we don't have the skills to achieve. And they're good ideas and they're logical ideas and they make sense, but they don't appreciate nor understand or take into account the emotional nuances, the invisible aspects of our lives that we need to have some skills to navigate. We can't rely on consistent willpower. It won't take us there. We can't override our upsets for the rest of our life. We can't do it. It's not going to work. There's this thing called emotional constipation and it will get the better of us. It will win, right? As much as logically we think we're just going to shove it down and ignore it and move on and grind it out, it will win. And so this pretend that we think we can just ignore our emotions for the long haul is such a setup for so many additional behaviors above being anxious. But there's passive aggressive, there's defensiveness, there's personalizations, there's manipulations, and they all come from trying to cope and deal with unwanted situations and circumstances because I don't have better skills. I don't have better knowledge and understanding about what I could do instead. So most of us are exceptionally aware of what I do that does not work. We can pound on that, and we do. We pound on that regarding ourselves. When I'm in the courtroom judging myself, I pound on that with my partner when I place them in the courtroom and I'm judging them and all the BS that they do. But what we don't know and what we don't have is what to do instead. And until I have that what to do instead, I am going to have to use the coping skills that I know. What else am I going to do to get me from moment A to moment B? That you give me something different that then proves to be successful and it creates a better experience. Oh, as a human being, I'll do that all day long. I want to do it. I understand how to do it. I might still have some of those difficult emotional experiences, but I know what to do instead that takes me to a better place. So that's what I'm going to do because I don't want to experience pain. It's just when I'm in a painful place, it's amazing how, like you said, Brookie, earlier in the conversation, we do more of the thing that escalates the pain because we don't know what else to do. We know what doesn't work. And I think if I bang on you enough, it's going to motivate you to change, but not really. It never works. It doesn't work for any of us. We just either get more and more aggressive or more and more shut down on those patterns. And then that's going to be a problem that absolutely is going to create some surprise.
Well, and I think it's fair to say, I mean, especially in very heightened emotional places for us, we've developed these habits that don't necessarily serve us so well, but they're survival. I mean, so they're deeply ingrained, understandably so. So, they're not the easiest to step out of and learn new skills that are much more effective. I mean, it can be done, but it takes a little bit of practice.
Yeah, but it just reminds me of what we say when we get into these very stressful, desperate, panicking situations about our relationship. And we're like, okay, I promise I'll never do that again. That behavior that Dad's talking about, that's ingrained in our coping. And we swear on a stack of Bibles that we will never do it again the next time we fight. And of course we're going to.
Yeah.
But then when you set it up like that, you feel like an absolute failure when you do it again because you're going to.
The tragedy in that pattern is the terrible things that I make up about myself.
Gosh. Yes.
That I promise, and then I did it again. So where do we go? We resource from this logical place in us because we don't understand how these things work. And I make up some terrible things about myself. And I literally turn myself into a monster trying to cope with this. because I don't know what else to do. And then I can come up with some terrible narratives about my partner too. And you want to talk about a nightmare? And now we're living in this feeling of pretend and illusion, and nobody knows how to talk about the real thing that's really hurting or that doesn't work for me, or even voice what it is I would really want to pursue with you. Instead, it's thrown out with jabs and passive aggressive tone and uncomfortable feelings that I then get defensive so I can shut them down, places and spaces where I avoid talking with you about anything that's important. And we think
And you
that's going to
say,
take us to the promised land.
You say like, yeah, I'm just a piece of shit, like I'm just the worst wife on the planet. And that makes your partner feel like they have to reassure you that you're not, when you were just being passive. It's terrible. That feeling of desperate, like, I don't know. It's one of the worst feelings ever. And it's like when you're in that kind of place of self-deprecation, it's so hard to get out of it.
So true. And what's even more interesting and sad is 90+% of couples live in that reality. And so now in our society and our culture, it's kind of like we've made up this whole narrative that you're stupid if you want to fall in love and co-create with somebody, like you're a fool, right? And then we have these silly, stupid cliches that just make my head explode. Like, well, just be the person in the relationship that doesn't care as much of the other. That way you won't lose your control. Please. That just tells me you have no idea what you're talking about. Like, that is terrible advice based on logic, but totally negating the whole experience of relationship and, quite frankly, the beauty of it. So I just want our listeners to hear me say this. A great relationship is available to us all. It is not just for the chosen and lucky few. It is something that everyone can develop if you will roll up your sleeves and learn some hardcore principles and some skills in order to navigate the inevitable ups and downs that are coming. Not because somebody doesn't love you, but because you're human. And humans will inevitably have things change over time. We need things to change over time. And how are you going to navigate that change? It's not going to work to stay stagnant. I've got to skill up and I've got to understand how to do it. If I'm really good at my finances, as an example, I'm going to be able to know what to do when I overdraw my bank account, or I can keep myself from overdrawing the bank account in the first place. If I'm really good and masterful at driving a car, it's amazing what I can navigate through from some very precarious obstacles, right? It's because I do it and I know what to do and I don't panic. And that's how I would love for you to feel in your relationship. I would love for you to know that when conflicts happen, and they will, they're inevitable, you know exactly what to do next, instead of freak out and panic in your fits of defensiveness and personalizations and passive aggressive, manipulative behaviors, that you actually know what to do. It doesn't mean your armpits won't be sweaty, but you'll have the confidence to do what it is you know you need to do. You can't resolve your way out of moments that you don't know how to navigate. Those outcomes that you're pursuing are good, and bravo, you're starting to see places and spaces where you need to improve. But you won't be able to do it without understanding the nuances and principles of the emotional journey and the skills to help you accomplish those outcomes overall. So love is not going to take you there. Love is a great place to begin, and you wouldn't want to do a relationship without it. But love doesn't even necessarily fade over time. It can, but very common it is for us to love each other deeply and be so grateful for all the things that we've created together: children, finances, assets, homes, experiences. But I run out of emotional gas to continue. I have zero desire to continue doing this, and I don't see any change on the horizon. Those are the places where we say, I'm done. I can't say it enough. Love is great. We want it. We need it. But think of it like this. Love is the fuel that makes the thing go, but skills are the steering wheel and the brakes.
I like that.
And we teach a very specific skill for a brake pedal. I call it the brake pedal. And when we understand and know how to use the brake pedal, we can literally not worry about the topics that we put on the table anymore because we have a brake pedal instead of just hitting the gas in our conversations like we commonly do. And inevitably, we're going to careen off a cliff or into a tree because we don't know how to stop. We think more is better. We think escalation is just something that we're going to allow to run the show without realizing sometimes you just need a good old fashioned brake pedal.
I think it's all due to that fucking terrible advice. Don't go to bed angry.
I don't like that one either. It's the worst advice.
So let's say
ever.
that you're to be fair, so okay, we've been just kicking each other's ass and it's time to go to bed now. Like, what do we do?
Well,
you say we're going to put this on, we'll revisit this tomorrow. I love you. I know this is tough. I'm upset. You're upset. Good night.
Yeah, but that's still hard when you don't have the skills. I've had that exact situation happen before I acquired skills in this house that I'm in right now. Jack was the reasonable one that you just were, Mom, too. He said exactly basically what you just said. Super calm. But I took it as tomorrow he's going to break up with me. That's why he wants me to go to bed.
Okay.
And that was insane. Like insane thinking on my part. It was all my anxiety running the show. It was me just feeling super insecure in myself and embarrassed in how I had acted and just letting my movie go to all of the dark places that you don't need to go because they're not even real. And so my advice to people who run a little anxious like me, if you can't tell, is my point is that, yeah, we could call it a broken record statement for people who understand what that is, what Mom 2 just said. So you would just say that over and over again, but it doesn't guarantee that your partner is going to just immediately be calm with you. Because I was cray-cray. And so
how did you remedy it so you could go to bed?
I went and slept on the couch and just threw a fit and was texting him. Like, it was insane. Looking back on it, it's embarrassing to say this, but my point is that in our relationships, they push us to a point because we care about them so much and we don't want them to end and we will do anything to make them work. But on the flip side, we also will act like the worst we act. We won't act like that to anyone else except for in this situation. So my point is that for that to work, both people need to have skills because Jack had the skill, but I didn't. And it made him frustrated. Of course it did, because he was putting up the boundary saying, no, I'm done. Like, this conversation is over. We can try again tomorrow. Yeah. We're both tired. We're both hungry. We both just need to go to sleep. It's 3 a.m. It's a bad situation when one of the people is anxious, which is unfortunate because that's a lot of couples. There's one anxious and there's one avoidant. Until you have some skills, it might still not go well. But there's really nothing I could have done in that situation to make him keep talking. Once someone is done talking, they're done. You just have to accept it. And all the message that the person who is acting that way should be receiving in that moment, because Mom 2 always says, if you're receiving a message, it's always meant for you. Like, a lot of times you're not supposed to share it. It's something that you need to figure out in your own mind. That message the universe was trying to imprint on me in that moment is, Brooke, you need some emotional regulation skills.
Yes.
And I think we poo-poo that all the time. Like, I know how to regulate myself, but it was clear in that moment I had no idea how to regulate my emotions and have a place of calm inside of myself, which I think is a huge glaring problem in a lot of people, in a lot of relationships.
I totally agree. And that person that's saying, okay, I can't continue this. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. I'm hungry. We need to go to bed. I'm sure we'll see this differently in the morning. The piece that you might want to think about adding because of Brooke's share is, I love you and you matter to me. I'm not going anywhere. Go to bed.
Take a
and
pause.
We're going to see this differently in the mornings. So also think about if your partner says, okay, I'm out, I'm done with this conversation. You have the ability, rather than freak out and text all kinds of crazy stuff, to say, could you just reassure me of these few things? And then I think I'll be able to let it go.
Yeah, that's true. That piece of reassurance would have really
helped.
And I know Jack would have given it to me if I could have voiced it, but I was like beyond. I was just emotionally exhausted. We both were. It was bad. But If I could have said, could you reassure me? It totally would have snapped me out of it.
Yeah. So if you find yourself in this situation often, you both need to get some rest because you're going to see this differently in the morning, which is why I encourage you to go to sleep.
I think a lot of times you won't even need to continue the conversation because it's gotten so out of control and like silly that you don't even know what you're speaking about anymore. And you wake up in the morning and you're like, I'm done with that.
True. True.
Exactly. That's so true. It's amazing how you see it so differently if you can just give it some time.
Mm-hmm.
It's either going to go, what am I doing? Or I've distilled it down to such a place that I can actually say what it is I need to say now. And just think about that as an overall human experience. There isn't a one of us on the planet that hasn't had that experience. Even a 2-year-old or a 1-year-old that throws a big hissy fit. Once the hissy fit has been thrown, there's a clarity of what it is they actually want in a place of calm on the backside. And so we just want to learn how to get there in better ways outside of throwing a fit. And sometimes we do need some reassurance. And sometimes we do need a nap and a rest and a snack and just a hug and a blankie, right? To help us all feel better and let it pass. We're no different really than kids. Sometimes I really admire the kids that I see in the stores and out and about in the world throwing a huge hissy fit. And I thought, damn, I wish I could do that.
Yeah, because they can identify what they need so quickly in some cases, you know?
That's so true. So all of that to say, knowing how to pause instead of react, having words ready for hard moments, understanding your own emotional patterns and needs, those places of spaces of reassurance, knowing how to repair instead of replaying the same old hashing dynamics that don't work over and over and over again. That's what skills can do for you. That's what practice of those skills can do for you. And we just wait too long. We normalize what is actually not working. We become very accustomed and adapt to it, which is a beautiful thing. We have the capacity to do as a human being, but we can normalize to such dysfunction that then I can't stay in it. And it can be a calm, we don't talk, we never fight kind of normalization, or it can be drama and chaos that's unbelievable 24/7. So those places and spaces become normalized and we don't think about even reaching out for help and support. It won't be until somebody decides they're going to leave that we commonly get a phone call. And I so applaud. We have several clients that just say, hey, we don't have a house on fire, but we just want to be proactive.
And we'll send something as, good for you.
So that's when we want to do that.
If there's anything that we see over and over again that really saddens us as a family, you wait too long. And then you have unrealistic expectations of what can happen. Look, we're good at what we do, but we're not a miracle worker. Oftentimes people have there's no capacity anymore. They've exhausted it way past the point of even potentially thinking about a 2.0. Mm-hmm. And we can't bring that to the table. We can help you develop that within yourself through some really open Socratic type questions to help you uncover things maybe you've never looked at. But at the end of the day, if there's one reason why people don't make it, you wait too long. You do.
You run out of emotional gas.
And it's scientifically, and all the data and metrics prove it. You wait too long. So don't wait, please. Don't wait. It's 2026. It's the new year. Have us help you or get some help somewhere. It's not going to get better with time. It's going to increase in intensity for sure.
This is that quiet moment that gets ignored. Nothing is really exploding. No one is threatening to leave, but it feels empty and you don't feel heard and connected and valued anymore. Sure, you're getting by, taking care of all the logistics. You find yourself saying it'll be okay. Let's just give this some time and see how it goes. And that's often when people make new well-meaning intentions and resolutions for the year instead of decisions to learn how to get skills and support on board. It's not because they don't care, but because slowing down and looking honestly at what's not working feels scarier than pushing through it. So here's the question I leave you with. The question is, are you waiting for things to get bad enough to act? Are you hoping effort alone will change patterns you don't understand and have tools to navigate? Are you telling yourself you'll just talk more, have more sex, keep your mouth shut more often, and spend more time together as your solutions? I encourage you to realize that you don't need a crisis to justify getting support. These quieter moments that are gnawing at you is the best time to take action and do something different. And if you're listening to this and thinking, I know something needs to change, but I don't know what to do next, this is where a clarity call can help you out. A clarity call is a short, supportive conversation with Tom over here. It's not therapy, it's not coaching, and it's not a commitment to fix anything or anyone. It's a pause, a chance to slow everything down. On the call, Tom helps you get clear on what's actually happening in your relationship, which skills are missing or breaking down, and what kind of support would make the most sense for you where you are right now. There's no pressure to join anything. Nothing gets pushed or sold. No one's trying to convince you of a path you're not ready for. It's simply a place to step out of your emotional spin, talk things through with someone who understands these moments very deeply and personally, and leave with some emotional easing and a clearer next step than you had before the call. If you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or unsure whether what you're experiencing is normal or fixable, that's exactly what a clarity call is for. You don't need a crisis to book one. You just need to want some clarity, some understanding, and maybe some new possibilities on your frontier. Relationship resolutions don't fail because people don't care. They fail because no one taught the principles and skills that absolutely are needed to be practiced for success. And this has nothing to do with how much we love each other.
You can book your clarity call by going to staceybartley.com/apply.
Let's have a little bit of follow the fun, shall we? I invite you to share this episode with your partner. Each of you listen separately and then come back together for a 15-minute chat using this one question. What stood out for you, and what did you relate to the most?
There you go.
The song that we have chosen today, well, it's from Coldplay. It's a song called Fix You. And I love this because I feel like it beautifully mirrors the feeling of trying so hard. Everybody's doing their best. And then we become disappointed yet again and still longing for something better. I think this song speaks to that. I want to fix you. I want to fix me. I want to fix this. And Coldplay is just awesome. I'm so sad they're not still making music together. I loved them. Anyway, okay. Thank you so much for being here with us on the Love Shack today. If this conversation moved you or helped you feel a little more seen or has given you something to think about, please consider sharing it with someone you care about. That's how this podcast grows, human to human. And if it's happened to help you personally, please consider leaving us a review. Remember, love isn't enough, but skills are. Learn them, practice them, and live them. Bye-bye for now.
All right, it's time to leave the Love Shack. But before we part ways, we want you to know our door is always open and we'll leave the porch light on, ready to welcome you back whenever you need a dose of relationship wisdom. For more resources and tools, visit us at loveshacklive.com to dive deeper into the topics we've explored and find additional support for your relationship journey. Stay connected by subscribing to our podcast. Thank you for being part of our Love Shack Live community.